Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome back to day 4 of the Infinit-I Engage Boot Camp. Very excited to have you with us here today. I'm Craig Hart. My co-hostess with the mostest, Mr. Mark Ray, is on the line as well with us today. I know that some of you are joining us for the very first time, and welcome. Very glad to have you here. Those of you joining us have been here all week long. It's a pleasure to have you again, and we're going to have a nice, strong finish, we feel, for this week when we get our guest speaker on the line with us today. Now, just a little background about who we are. I am with Infinit-I Workforce Solutions. I'm part of our marketing operations team and run all of our events. And my background is in distance learning and e-learning online. And Mark is one of you. Mark has 35 plus years experience in the transportation industry. He's been an industry executive with Frozen Food Express, where he spent more than 30 years. And now he works as an advisor to different companies, both within and without the transportation industry. Also works with educational institutions and government organizations as well, advising them on how to help the transportation industry go into the future. So, Mark, happy Friday to you, sir. Glad to see you.
Yes, sir. It's been quite a week. We have covered a lot of ground this week, and today is really a special day. I can't wait to get Mr. Dan Baker on the line with us. We've covered high tech from chat boxes to home studios with dash cam events to the metrics that Ellen shared on the uh, safety record and the the women in driving need that we have, the void that we've got out there. And today, I was thinking this morning, when was the first time I'd heard Dan Baker, and had to be in the late '80s. I don't know exactly when. With FFE, we would have regular events, so I've heard him since then. And today, I'm just going to recommend everybody relax and it's a celebration of our industry to have a legend, a man that has impacted maybe 100,000 lives, directly and indirectly with his dialogue, his horse sense, and it's just a celebration of our industry. And I can't wait to hear Dan. So
Absolutely.
let's get it going.
All right, here now, just a quick recap for those of you who were not able to join us earlier in the week. Tuesday, we had Jeremy Reamer, the driver and CEO with Driver Reach, go over technology solutions to help with recruiting and onboarding so that you can take the air out of the process that is slowing down a candidate's interest and your ability to bring them on board. And then on Wednesday, we had George Girth, the VP of Safety and Recruiting with Grammar Logistics out of Indiana. He joined us and talked about how he's doing recruiting and retention and how it's working so well. Had a lot of great takeaways from George, from his insight about recruiting almost immediately through social media, and then also his robust referral program that he's got. He has a constant communication. There was a phrase I learned yesterday that I'm going to steal, that was constant and intentional communication, which is absolutely what George has in place for his team every single month so that his drivers feel involved and want to stay and give him that wonderful, wonderful retention rate that he has. And then Ellen Voya, the president and CEO of Women in Trucking, was with us yesterday, and she hit us with so much great information and the statistics to back it all up. We're going to talk a little bit more about her in a moment and what she shared. And then, of course, today we've got the sage of our industry, Mr. Dan Baker, joining us. All right, so just to give those who are new some insight into our schedule, Mark and I will be on here for the first 15 minutes or so, doing a little bit of a look back on what has been covered over the last 3 days. It's been a very informative and chock full of information. It's just a lot to go on. And then we're going to bring Dan on. And Dan's probably going to talk to us for about 30 minutes or so, and then we're going to have a wrap-up session and then get you guys on your way, energized, and ready to finish out this work week strong and tackle the future in a positive way. Your workbooks were sent out with your event confirmations, notifications. So make sure you've got that in hand. There is a day here for building a company where drivers want to be, which is what Dan is going to share insight on with us today. So make sure you got that out in front of you. I know that those of you who've been with us for 4 days, that thing is probably full information at this point, and that's the goal. We want this to be your action plan when this call is over with, so that you've got these takeaways that are going to make a difference in your organization in 2021. What got you here, that's often the phrase, is that what got you here isn't going to be what's going to get you to the next level. So that's why we wanted to hit you with so many different speakers, so many different ideas so that you can take them and make them your own. And the workbook helps do that. If you need a copy of the workbook, you can let Lindsay know in chat, or you can email her at lindsay.presley@verticalag.com. Speaking of chat, make sure that your chat window is open. Those of you who've been with us the last several days, you know the drill. On your menu bar, click on More and then Chat. Once it's open on your screen at the bottom, click on where it says To, click on that and select all panelists and attendees. And that way, your folks can see, or everyone on the call can see, what you're sharing with us today, the insights, the questions that you may have, and things like that. So this is a participatory event. We don't talk at you, we talk with you. And chat is one of the primary ways that we do that. So I know some of you are already chiming in and letting us know where you are from. That's awesome. We got some folks from Utah, Washington, Louisiana, Columbus, Ohio, more Ohio folks, Westfield, Wisconsin. This is awesome, guys. So glad to see you all. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right, here now our daily code word of the day. Today is the last day of our daily code word contest, so we will be providing that last code word at the end of today's session. You do have to have all 4 code words submitted to Lindsay, and we'll provide her email address again when we reveal the code word to be entered into a drawing for this dash cam. This is a dash cam forward and rear facing for your personal vehicle. And the reason we thought this was cool is, yeah, you guys get to deal with dash cams a lot in your daily lives from the ones that your drivers operate, but just because you're moving from your office to a terminal or what have you and home in your own car doesn't mean that there aren't people out there that are doing crazy things on the road in vehicles. And it never hurts to have bad actors and that bad behavior recorded so that you can show that to a police officer, your insurance company, to show, hey, I was doing the right thing and this guy came up acting the fool and he hit my car, he rear-ended me, and so forth. So we will be doing the drawing later on this afternoon once all submissions are in, and we will notify the winner and announce that winner also in our follow-up email to everyone on the call. Got some more folks saying hi from Massachusetts, Minnesota, Denver, Colorado, Texas. Hi, Susie. Hopefully you did not have the crazy, crazy cold temperatures we had here in the Dallas area. If you did, I'm sorry, but we felt your pain. West Fargo, North Dakota. Awesome. This is great, guys. Keep it up. Keep it up. We did have a couple special offers that we made to our audience members as well. This event, our first offer that we made back on day 1 was for those of you on this call that are not familiar with Infinit-I Workforce Solutions. We want to get to know you better, and to do that, we have put together a 30-day free trial. So you can take advantage of our system, assign out training, assign out custom communications, just like George talked about on Wednesday, risk-free by taking advantage of that trial. And you can find more information about that trial on the link in chat that Lindsay just shared, or you can just type that in, the infinitiworkforce.com/complimentary-trial. Now, our second offer was for bettertruckdrivingjobs.com. It's a job posting site that you have access to for 1 year of unlimited job postings. So I know Jeremy talked about this. I know Ellen talked about this. Testing your messaging, testing what your recruiting ads say about who you are and what you're looking for. This is a perfect opportunity that if you want to start improving your ads, take advantage of the system, because you'll be able to see very quickly, are your ads gaining traction? Are they not? If they're not, switch it up, change it up to something that is gaining traction. And you can do that at no cost to your organization. So definitely take advantage of that. Lindsay has the link for that up in chat as well. And that's very quick turnaround time. I know in January when we did this, we had bettertruckdrivingjobs.com. People signed up on Wednesday and had ads up on Thursday. So it was a very quick turnaround time to make that happen. All right, looking back, yesterday was with Ellen Voya, President and CEO of Women in Trucking. Um, I love having Ellen involved as a speaker because she is such a great thinker when it comes to how are we presenting our organizations to the people that we want to bring on board. Yes, we do want more women in the trucking industry. Are the things that we're saying communicating that effectively out to potential candidates? A couple of things that she was able to point out for us is number of women in trucking is on the rise. That is tremendous. It went up in 2020. It's almost 8% of the drivers out in this country right now are women. That is going to continue to rise. Do you want to be a part of that rise, or do you want to not take advantage of this pool of interested candidates that you may not be appealing to yet? So I don't want to have this conversation 6 months where you have not yet put together anything that appeals to interested women candidates. You are going to be behind the curve. And there's some good reasons for that. Women are more risk averse, and she did a great job laying out the other impacts that having women drivers can have on your organization. Fewer accidents because they don't take all the chances that men drivers are prone to do. I mean, it's 20% less crashes with women drivers. They drive more miles. They take better care of your equipment. They get fewer tickets. I mean, and when they have accidents, they typically happen at a lower speed and cause less damage. So, like I mentioned yesterday, yes, getting more people in trucks is important, but it can be impactful in other areas of your organization, other parts of your bottom line. If bringing women on board to your organization solves that problem of needing recruits, but also makes you a safer organization with fewer accidents, makes you look much better to your insurance company, gets you out of that DOT audit, or makes you safer, it's worth its weight in gold. So take advantage of it. So, and as part of that, and as part of the messaging, remember, men and women are motivated by different things. I know that specifically Ellen was talking about women are motivated by honesty and support and a culture that they feel supports them, whereas men are motivated by fairness in their pay. Is your company culture, think about this, is your company culture built to deliver on both of those things for both of those groups of people? If not, what can you do to change that? And most importantly, women want to be a part of this industry, and they want to be a part of this industry at all different levels, from the shop to management to drivers on the road. So they are out there, they want to be involved. What are the things that you can do at your organization to make that happen? And I know quite a few of you expressed interest after the call and learning more about women in trucking. So hopefully Ellen will be reaching out to you shortly, as we did let her know who you were. And I think that's a great first step. And I love how she works with organizations, with companies to help craft the messaging so you get your message across.
You know, Craig, her metrics were very compelling, and obviously the participation is on the rise. And I would strongly recommend, if you're not active in promoting and accommodating and respecting women, you're behind the curve. It's an emerging population, and it's a huge opportunity. And I would and a lot of the comments that we got were, okay, we want to do this, we don't know how to do it. Women in trucking it has resources available. So if you're not active in this arena, you need to be active.
Absolutely. Now, for those who were not present on the previous sessions, I think I've seen some things in chat about this already. We do have replays available of every single day, and we'll also have a replay of day 4 once we complete that. They will be available, or the first 3 days are already up on this link that's on the screen right now, and Lindsay just put it in chat for you there because she's awesome. So that way you can share that with others in your organization that were not able to join us today. We typically don't make our replays available to the general public, so we function a little bit differently in that regard because we want to make sure that that the people who come get the value, and that, you know, once you've seen it, you can share it with others. Most of the time when people want replays, they're not going to watch it, so we want to make sure this is something that you want to watch again. Awesome. All right. Now, without further ado, the person I know some of you have been waiting for since November. Just to let you know kind of how this came about, Dan has been a very good friend of our organization for a very long time. And when we just started these thought leadership events back in November, we solicited opinions of and ideas of things people wanted to learn more about, and the key areas that came up for recruiting. We need help. We need ideas about recruiting. We need ideas and help for keeping the drivers that we have. And hey, it'd be awesome if we could hear from Dan Baker. So I think, Mark, in the last 4 days, we have managed to accomplish that brief in full, and we're very excited to have Dan with us on the call today. So we can go ahead and turn his microphone on there.
Yeah, I'd also just like to add that you know, Dan is has a series that he promotes and is available on Infinit-I, a weekly series, and we certainly used it at Frozen Food Express. It worked very well. It's a short, sweet, and we always had follow-up discussions. So if you are really committed to improving your relationship with your drivers, I strongly recommend signing up and subscribing to his program. We'll talk about that later on, but it worked. It worked. I can personally attest to that. So, Dan, the driver shortage issue is real, and I can't wait to hear your comments on how we can bridge that gap between the walls.
Let's go ahead and unmute his microphone so we can hear him. There we go. Good morning, Dan.
Well, hello, everybody. How are you? This is your old friend, Dan Baker, and I'm truly honored to be with you today. This is a very special treat for me. For those of you that I know, it's great to be with you again. And for those of you I don't know, welcome on board. I promise I'll be open. I'll try to stay on point, and we'll quit when we're through. How's that? Just a little bit about myself. I'm an old guy, been a speaker, teacher, and consultant to this old trucking business since the Dead Sea was just sick. I'm at the age when you bend over to tie your shoes, you look around to see what else you can do while you're down there. I used to be a Methodist preacher before the Lord told me he'd rather do it himself. And just so you'll know, a Methodist is just a drinking Baptist that can't afford to be an Episcopalian. But I promise I won't get off track and start preaching. That's a promise. But in truth, I love doing what I do. And I promise that if you have half as much fun as I do in our little old session today, we're going to have a good time. I didn't know it then, but my passion for this business started way back when I was a little boy in Burke Burnett, Texas, way up on the old Red River. Every Friday evening of my life, sitting on the front porch of our little old house on Hayworth Street, looking down under all them old sycamore trees, waiting to see my daddy's running lights come around that corner. And when that big old truck came around that corner, boy, pull up in front of our house, I'd run out there and I'd jump, and Daddy would catch me every time. It was one of the biggest parts of my growing up, a huge part of my life, my daddy coming home. That was the beginning of how I got hooked in this old business, because to this very day, a great big part of who we are and what we do in trucking is about coming home, about daddy or mama coming home. And as you leadership folks well know, you've got a lot of people in positions that cover everybody from the recruiters to the processors to the orientation folks to the mentoring folks who make your company run and keep everything going. And when you look closely at all your inside the wall folks, you quickly find that they're busy, preoccupied with too much to do, and never enough time to get it all done. They often have very little time for a driver. That doesn't mean they don't care about drivers. It just means that they're preoccupied with what they've got to do and everything they got to get done. Their major concerns are focused on their own departments, and most of them seldom talk to or deal with or visit with a driver. That's just normal. To most of the inside the wall folks, those drivers live in another world, because your drivers live and work outside the wall. And that's not good or bad. It's not right or wrong. It's just the way things are in this old trucking business. And for our purpose today, the inside the wall people I want to focus on are our dispatchers and our driver managers. And to simplify my terminology, I'm just going to call them driver managers. Truly, some of the most important people in your company family. That driver manager is the one person within your company that knows, deals with, and manages your drivers. I know you already know that, but I just want to make certain that we all understand that your inside the wall trucking company is linked to your outside the wall drivers by that driver manager. And as most of y'all clearly know, that driver manager can and does make all the difference in the world with how your company gets along with your drivers and how your drivers get along with your company. That driver manager is one of the key players in your whole organization. He or she sits at the doorway between your inside the wall folks and your drivers who live and work outside the wall. I don't mean to do too much, go over this too much inside the wall, outside the wall thing, but it's huge when it comes to the quality of your dispatcher driver relationships. How that driver manager driver relationship functions says more about your company than almost anything else you can focus on. When a trucking company is supporting its drivers in a friendly, concerned, focused kind of way, driver turnover is simply not a major concern. And the one thing that I'm always reminding folks about is that basically trucking is not so much about the roads and the loads and the routes and the rates and the maps and the phones and the fuel as it is about people, about relationships, people working with and getting along with other people. When I'm working with a trucking company that has driver-driven, driver-sensitive, driver-focused driver managers, I don't have to ask anything about that company or their drivers. Why? Because if that driver-manager relationship is tight and secure and maintained with good, solid human relationship skills, baby, it's a done deal. You can take it to the bank. Yeah, you're still going to have some problems and lose some drivers, but if that driver-manager driver relationship is tight, you won't lose many, and those that you do lose will often come back. Why? I'll tell you why. Because they miss you. And many of y'all listening in today who are management folks in your company already know what I'm talking about. If your drivers know that you know him or her and will stand behind him or her through thick and thin, that driver is not going to go anywhere. Not for better pay, not for better equipment, not for better miles, not for better home time. Most of y'all know better than I do that if you build the kind of company that a driver wants to work for, baby, that driver is yours. He or she is not going to leave you. And so I don't get too carried away here. I know that over time, you're going to lose some drivers for this or that reason. But make certain that you're not losing that driver because you got so busy with the daily details that you forgot about the person behind the wheel. Don't ever let yourself forget that this is not just the trucking business, y'all. Basically, this is the people business. And I know you know that good professional drivers put up with a lot of stuff that the normal workaday world kind of worker would simply not tolerate for a minute. Just look at what that driver puts up with out there by himself or herself, running down that road, thinking about the last thing whoever he or she was talking to or said to him, living on fast food and truck stop gossip, sleeping in a truck, showering in a truck stop, being married long distance, raising kids 500 miles from the house, feeling sorry for himself or herself, being homesick, having to help hold a family together that's 300 miles away. It's tough, y'all, and it takes tough people, people who can see beyond their own feelings to make it work. So today, the big question changes from what have I got to do to recruit more drivers to what have I got to do to create the kind of company that a driver wants to work for. And as I make that statement, you can easily see that I'm moving from recruiting a driver to attracting a driver. Yeah, from recruitment to attraction, all the difference in the world. First attracting a driver, then recruiting that driver, and then absorbing that driver, and then keeping that driver. That's a never-ending challenge that stays with all of us morning, noon, and night. And with all of this said, let me pause a minute, and let's take a quick look at what that driver is actually looking for. What do you think that is? What's the most important? The roads and the loads and the routes and the rates and the maps and the phones and the fuel? Or is it mamas and daddies and husbands and wives and sons and daughters? Let me just say it again. Somewhere we've got to get it clear that trucking is not just about the roads and the loads and the routes and the rates and the maps and the phones and the fuel, nearly as much as it's about mamas and daddies and husbands and wives and sons and daughters. So now we've said that twice, and I said it twice on purpose. And then on top of all we just covered, you got to deal with and be sensitive to the several age groups you're working with and dealing with. And we won't get into that a lot, but you're not just dealing with drivers. You're often dealing with all kinds of drivers, all makes and models, all generations, all kinds of backgrounds. Just take a quick look. First, you got the old timer guys and gals that have been driving since the Dead Sea was just sick. These are the old folks who come from the World War II generation and the baby boomer generations. Their years run from about 1947 through 1964. And I know I'm being very general here, but suffice it to say, these old timers are loyal, dependable, trustworthy, and today they're getting pretty old. We call these folks the old moss backs. They've been around so long, they got moss growing on their back. They're worth their weight in gold. And today we're losing more and more of these old timers. And in losing them, we're losing some of the most valuable people that trucking has ever known. We're losing a lot of our professional wealth. If you ever get a chance to visit with some of these old mossbacks that did it the hard way, man, don't pass up that opportunity. They got stories that'll curl your hair and make you proud to be in this business. They're truly part of our priceless heritage. So moving on a bit, then you got the Generation X and the Millennial Generation drivers, which run from 64 to the 90s. And in very, very general terms, they're our middle group. And though the old timers used to tease and belittle them for being lazy and spoiled, they grew up and turned out to be our super generation of drivers. They got a lot of history. They're doing great work today. It's amazing what age can do for credibility. And all of this is simply to say that we have a priceless generational heritage in trucking that we can be super proud of. And regardless of their age and generation, these drivers are the people that define who we are and what we do and where we're going. And with all the uncertainties and political changes going on in our country today, it's very comforting to know that our professional drivers are out there alone, away from home, doing what needs to be done to pick this old country up and bring her back to herself every day, every day, every day. Today, as I talk with my trucking friends, both owners and drivers, I see a new sense of pride and appreciation in the fleets. With all the changes and uncertainties in our industry today, our drivers just keep on keeping on. And they're proud to know they're playing a huge part in our lives and in the lives of this country. Today, people who have a job and are making a good living at doing what they're doing are grateful and appreciative of what they have. And as the years go by, we all appreciate more and more the contributions of the older guys and gals to set the bar for what we have today. Every one of your drivers can be proud of what they've accomplished. And as I look at the news every day and see the current confusion and loss of respect for our country and our working people, I'm tremendously proud to be part of one of the few industries that does what's got to be done. And they do it with pride and love and efficiency. You don't see truckers marching in the street or burning flags or tearing up cities or spending time hating those that don't agree with them. And those of us in this industry can be proud to be the folks that get them rolling and get them paid and get them home with all the dignity and love and respect of people who love this country. And with all that said, I'm curious, what have you got in your company that you think your drivers are proud of? Are they proud of your company? Do they call your company their company too? Can they call your company home? Do your drivers feel included and involved in your company family? Is your company just a trucking company, or is it a company family? How does your company measure and honor driver success? What are the main driver problems you need to be working on? How much do your dispatchers and driver managers know and understand about driving a truck? I'm just asking, but these are fair questions. And then I have another question about your company and your drivers. When's the last time you just sat back and looked at all the departments and functions in your trucking company that a new prospective driver needs to know about and deal with? Just to mention a few, let's see. I'm going to call this first introductory process the old corridor of entry. I picture our new driver walking down this corridor or hallway of entry into your company, visiting all the required functions that he or she has to deal with along the way. This is a head-spinning process for a lot of new drivers. Let's see. Let's just look at it. First of all, there's the advertising function where you reach out with folders and flyers and radio and television ads to get that driver's attention and his interest or her interest. That's the beginning. Then there's the recruiting department where we reach out and bring that prospective driver in to see if he or she qualifies, to see if our company is the kind of company that a prospective driver wants to work for. Then we got the processing department, our function, where we put our prospective driver through the ropes to see if he or she qualifies. Then we put our new driver through the orientation process where he or she learns our rules of the road and what it's going to be like working with and for our particular company family. How do you think our prospective driver is feeling about now? Then we try to introduce our new driver to an older, experienced professional driver who knows and understands the company, how it works, and what it's like being a driver for your particular company. And during all of these qualifying stops, does that driver feel welcomed and treated in a warm and friendly manner? And finally, we introduce our new driver to his or her driver manager that he or she's going to work with on a daily basis for as long as he or she works with the company family. And as I look at this process, I can understand why so many new drivers don't make it. And this is so embarrassingly simple. A lot of new drivers simply get confused or intimidated or lost in the details. And they figure it's just too confusing and complicated, and they often feel stupid. Can you imagine? And many times they're out the door before we even know they're gone. I keep telling recruiting folks to make that new driver's first impression, to be friendly and honest and eyeball to eyeball, and encourage any and all questions. Take time to make that new driver feel comfortable. Be reminded that when you're dealing with a new driver, there's no stupid questions. No matter what the question, you take the time to be sure you got the question clearly, and then take the time to get the answer. If you don't know the answer, find out who does know the answer right then and there, and you let that new driver know you're here to help, to encourage, and answer any and all questions on the spot. Don't ever commit the sin of making or allowing a new or prospective driver to feel stupid or incompetent or out of touch. And as you know, drivers are a proud lot. They don't like to feel stupid or put down or out of the loop. And I know you know that as well as anybody. You just make certain that your communication with a new driver is clear and clean and simple and upfront and to the point. If you get a questioning look or response from a new driver, push on him or her a little bit and make sure they clear up any uncertainty. This simple procedure can save you lots and lots of money and time and effort, and it can affect turnover almost instantly. Take my word for it. Much of the driver turnover we complain about is caused by us inside the wall people getting too busy and too preoccupied to listen or to ask questions or to follow through with a question to make certain that that driver, new or experienced, gets a clear, clean, easy to understand answer. Don't leave a new driver in limbo. Have I repeated myself enough? Sorry for the repetition, but moments of uncertainty or lack of clarity can cause a first-class driver to walk away because he or she is too proud to have to ask again or to look stupid or to show ignorance. I'm sorry to say that sometimes we lose a real mile-running, money-making, moss-back driver because he or she was too shy to look stupid and have to re-ask a question. And as a simple closing thought in this segment, be reminded that drivers will perceive you in terms of how they perceive you perceive them. Let me say that again. Drivers will perceive you in terms of how they perceive you perceive them. If you look up to your drivers, they will know it. If you show it, they know it. If you don't show it, they know that too. So be very careful with your perceptions, because your perceptions are visible. People know what you're thinking. If you look up to your drivers, they will know it. Say that to yourself about twice a day. Driver-centric, driver-focused, driver-driven. You can hang that around your neck. And then I want to talk about the rules of the road. Finally, I come to my rules of the road for leadership people for creating a strong, resilient, dependable relationship between you and your drivers. Here are some simple rules of the road. All right, stay with me. Rule number one, the bigger you get, the further you get from the guy that got you there. Our temptation is to get so involved with all we have to do and get done that we often forget about that driver who is earning us our living. And the more we forget, the further away we get from that driver. That's rule number one. Rule number two, the more things you pay attention to, the less attention you pay to each one. As a leader, you've simply got to make peace with the fact that you cannot be everything to all people all the time. Pay attention to your drivers first and get the other stuff later, okay? Rule number three, the first thing you think about tends to be the last thing you just heard. Boy, oh boy, does that ever get us in trouble with how we are perceived by our drivers. Ever been driving home late in the evening after a long day and realized that you didn't call that driver back like you said you would? Oh, and we all do that from time to time, and it can sure cost you in the long run. Rule number 4, the more times you repeat a function, the less important it becomes. Repetition can dull our senses of immediacy and can cause us to forget our priorities. And all of a sudden, lots of really important things can seem old and out of date. Rule number 5, the better you get at doing what you're good at, the less time you got for it. Oh, no matter how good you are at doing your job, you sooner or later can run out of wiggle room and lose your credibility. Try to stay mentally current with your drivers. And I got to tell you, your most vital personal factor with your drivers is your personal credibility. If you don't show it, they don't know it. Your personal credibility is the most important part of your life, in your work, in your career. And with those little reminders regarding leadership, please allow me to say a few words about a huge factor in management. I call it the old law of perception. The law of perception says, I don't deal with you in terms of what you're really like. I deal with you in terms of how I perceive you to be. You can be the nicest person in the world, but if you don't act nice, I'm not going to treat you that way. You can be the best listener in the world, but if you don't look like you're listening, I ain't going to talk to you. You've got to show signs that you heard what I was talking about. I'm not going to talk to you if you're not listening. The law of perception, it simply says, other people are going to respond to you in terms of how they perceive you perceive them. How can you manage how they perceive you? Well, for starters, here are 4 easy things to remember. Be the first one to be warm and kind and friendly. Put a smile on your face. Be approachable. Next, use their name, their real name, not their nickname. Call them what their mama called them, not booger or shorty or ugly, okay? Thirdly, say thank you. You know like you learned in Sunday school class. Learn to say grace over what you already got before you start asking for what you wouldn't know what to do with if you did get. And then fourthly, look them in the eye and ask them, how you doing? A little bit of that, oh, how you doing, trucker? And when you do ask them, hush up and listen to what they've got to tell you. You know, perception is a strange thing. It's not what we see, but how we see what we see. I recall the story of the old preacher in church on Sunday morning, preaching on the evils of alcohol. And to make his point for that morning, he put 2 big water glasses up in front of the congregation on his podium so that everybody could see. And he filled one water glass with plain old water, and then the other water glass, he filled it halfway with water, and the other half he filled with whiskey. And then he reached into a big old bucket and pulled out 2 giant wiggling earthworms. Then he dropped one earthworm into the water glass and it settled to the bottom and wiggled around happily. Then he took the other earthworm and dropped it into the whiskey water where it jerked a couple of times and hit the bottom dead on a hammer. And from the congregation, somebody said, asked what the lesson was. And the preacher said, the lesson for today is if you drank whiskey, you won't get worms. That preacher was on the ball because he knew how to make a point. The point is simply that you remember and learn from what you see and not from what somebody else says. Good question. Okay, my question today, how visible is your personal commitment to your drivers? Can they see it? Can they hear it? Can they feel it? Outside the wall. I want to talk about outside the wall. As I start closing up, and I'm certain you're glad to hear that I'm doing that, I would like to look at our drivers from the perspective of outside the wall. We know clearly that our drivers live in a different world than we do. They spend hours and days and miles of time alone, running down that road, thinking about the last thing whoever he or she said to them, living on fast food and truck stop gossip, feeling sorry for himself or herself, being homesick, thinking about the last thing whoever he was talking to said to him, ruminating, agitating, percolating, cogitating, till all kind of little things get all kind of big and ugly. Listening to the voices in his or her head, watching little things turn into big things. An ongoing process that he or she can not always control or get away from. Just be reminded again for the 4th or 5th time, if you don't show it, they don't know it. Years ago during a company learning session, a driver drew a diagram on a chalkboard that I have never forgotten. He just thought it up during the meeting. The diagram was showing a process that is so simple and so true. It's a 4-stage process that's as true as due north. It's called the event, focus, expand, control model. Here, he just came up with this. Here how it goes in the life of a driver. Number one, a little event takes place that gets that driver's attention. Usually something that irritates him or her. A snide comment, a stupid question, a thoughtless action. Just something that bothers our driver that he or she can't get their mind off of. And then number two, that little event gets thought about, and that driver starts to focus on that little event. He starts thinking about it, cogitating on it, letting it take up more brain space than it should, but it does anyway. So now we go to the little event gets focused on so long, it starts to what? Expand, to get bigger, meaner, nastier, until it takes up a lot of brain space. And now we go to the final stage of losing control of his or her thinking. It happens to all of us. We get bent out of shape. We lose control of our own thinking. It happens all the time for all kinds of people, and it's something that can totally demotivate a new driver who's having a tough day. So my word to you as we come to the end of our day is this. Try to help your driver stay in control of their own thoughts, and don't allow other people to control their thinking. A good rule of thumb can be you stand guard over your own thoughts and you let other people stand guard over theirs. And with all that said, I hope our time together has been worth your while. You can be glad I'm about to shut up. And in closing, I'd like to share one of my old trucker poems that I wrote a long, long time ago. It goes something like this. It is his turn next in Sunday school class to tell him what his daddy did, because the lesson that day was on the way that daddies love their kids. One kid's daddy was a doctor. Another was a CPA. The teacher said their daily bread was bought with their daddy's pay. And the teacher looked at this little guy. He could tell he was about to cry. And he figured something must be wrong, so he quietly asked him why. And this little boy with tear-filled eyes said, y'all have all the luck, because your daddies are rich and they drive big cars. Mine just drives a truck. And the old teacher spun his wheelchair around, and he grimly faced that class. He said, I taught you well, but I burn in hell for I let that statement pass. You kids see me as a Sunday school teacher, just a cripple with a lesson plan. But down inside of these twisted legs are the bones of a trucking man. I was a high-rolling, hammer-stomping, pill-popping fool till I iced on Interstate 10, took the finest old rig that a bank ever bought to the bottom of the Rio Grande. And they must have tell about what come next. That's this old wheelchair I ride. And now and then I teach this class, so the Lord will know I've tried. And I've tried, young fellas, I've tried real hard just to pay for all I've done. But I'm going to close this good book now, and I'm going to talk to this trucker man's son. He's a trucker man, boy. Do you hear me? Don't give me that hangdog look. Your daddy's a gear jamming king of the road. He's a winner in any man's book. Who feeds you, boy? Does the grocery store? Does the fast food joint down the street? Or some 18-wheeler running all night long, bringing home every bite you eat? There ain't a thing you'll use today that some old trucker didn't bring. Somebody's daddy rode all night long so you could do your thing. Your thing, my thing, this country's thing, this whole thing rolls on wheels. We kept alive by these folks that drive, these folks God made out of steel. You just can't jam gears for 30 years without learning a thing or two. And if a country don't move, then a country don't eat. And son, that brings me back to you. The next time you talk about your daddy, you understand, son, you're talking about the man. You're the son of a hard-headed, proud-thinking hoss who just don't fit most folks' plans. So don't tell me your daddy is just a trucker. He's the man that takes this country where it goes. And I just hope that down inside, you'll someday feel that pride I used to feel pushing that old road. The old teacher seemed to lose his concentration. They could see the memories flooding through his brain. His eyes were fixed 1,000,000 miles away from where he sat there. As the old driver slowly spoke his inner pain, he said, no matter what they ever say about me, you can call me what they like to fit your plan. I just hope they write the truth on my gravestone. They more than anything, I was a trucker man. And I'll never know what happened to that teacher. Just a wounded angel, grounded from the road. A trucker man that taught me that my daddy was the finest man that this trucker man will ever know. And that's who we are, and that's what we do, and so be it.
Thank you so much, Dan. It is a pleasure and an honor to be able to always get to share as much time with you as we do. So
I'm honored.
it's watching the, I've got people asking how they can clap over Zoom to you. So there's a lot of love going on right now for you, Dan, in the chat. And I wanted to circle back around to something that Mark had mentioned earlier, that Dan has created a program of over 150 videos built to help every aspect of your organization understand the message and purpose and mission of your company. And these videos, they're short, less than 5 minutes long, and there's content in there for dispatchers and recruiters, but also there's content for those people skills and soft skills that we seem to be on the verge of losing as we become a more technological world. Anybody who's spent any time on social media can tell you that we've lost the ability to talk to one another. But just conflict resolution and how you present yourself and that power of perception that he mentioned just now. If you want to find out more about this program, Lindsay, can we go ahead and put that question up on the screen so folks can click yes and no? There we go. So if you want more information about the Dan Baker program, respond to that and we'll make sure that we get you details about that so that you can implement that with your organization as an ongoing tool to help drive this point home, to drive Dan's message home, because it's wonderful to hear from him, but it's wonderful also to spread that message around with others who couldn't be here with us today that would benefit from it. So I know there's some folks on the chat right now already talking about taking advantage of it and how much they're liking it. So that's awesome. That is awesome. Well, Mark, the hardest thing in the trucking business, sometimes it's having to follow Dan Baker on a webinar. You don't want to be that guy. So we're not going to take up a lot of time here as we wrap up today, because we know we've covered a lot of ground in the last 4 days. But there's a couple things that people are waiting on from us. First is our last code word of the day reminder, and I think it gels very well with what Dan was talking about with us today. Together. Today's code word of today is together. This works together. We rise together. We make ourselves stronger together. So you need to submit your code words of the day. Remember, you have to have all 4. Submit that to lindsay.presley@verticalag.com to be entered into that drawing for that drive cam, and then we will pull the winner of that this afternoon and contact you so we can get that sent your way. Also, we'll be sending out for those that won as part of the early registration drawings. I know we've reached out to all of you. I don't have the shipping details back from each of you yet, so we'll reach out to you again to make sure we get your shipping address, because sometimes what we have for you is your office address and you may want it sent someplace else. So the replay of this session will be available on the replay link that we shared earlier today. A couple of things just to look forward to. One, we've rolled out some new e-signature functionality in the Infinit-I Workforce platform that we're pretty excited about. If you were a client of ours, you can find out more details about that from your CSR. More events on the horizon. So next week, we are hosting a webinar with WorkHound focused on ongoing retention. So for those of you who have attended days 1 through 4, you can kind of think of that as an unofficial day 5, because WorkHound actively surveys drivers throughout the year, and they just published the 2020 results of what is making your drivers happy and what is making your drivers unhappy, so that you can correct and respond to that feedback. So we'll have invite details out to you today about that, so you can log in and join us. And we have other events that we are planning out for the rest of the year, and we're going to send you a post-event survey. This event today, this came specifically from feedback that you all attendees gave us at previous events. So these events live and breathe because of the things that you want to hear about, that you need ideas, that you want to become more informed about, so that you can take this and be more successful going in the future. We are here for you. So if there's things that you want to know more about, let us know. We are listening. Respond to that survey if there's things that you'd like us to talk about, so we can incorporate those into future events that we hold for you all. So Mark, any thoughts that you have for us here as we're wrapping this up?
No, I just, one of the, I've heard the point many times that Dan quoted, and the whole thing rolls on wheels. That's the line I love to hear. The whole thing rolls on wheels, and we've had so much high tech thrown at us this week. It's just a pleasure to have the high touch, the cultural relationship that Dan covered with us, and again, just thinking of all the people that he's impacted and will continue to impact is just astounding. So if you haven't sent a chat, a recognition and acknowledgement to Dan as a legend of our industry, I'd like everybody to just spend a minute and send a chat. Thank you. Way to go. He impacted my life. He listened to him. He knows what he's talking about. Something I would just encourage everybody to do that. Next week, the Workhound webinar is on Thursday, 10:30 a.m. Central Time. It's going to go over surveys and getting information from your driver fleet, and careful what you ask for, because you will get some information that you need to take action on. But anyhow, I'd just like everybody to send a thank you to Dan if you got just a second.
Yeah, it looks like those are lighting up chat right now so he can see them. So thank you guys so much for joining us at this virtual Engage Boot Camp. It is our absolute pleasure to be able to host these things for you, and I hope very much that you got as much out of this as we planned for you to. And stay tuned as we have more things coming based on feedback that you all give us. So we are not resting on our laurels, and we're pushing ahead. Thank you, Mark.
Yes, sir.
Could not do it without you. And thank you, Dan. You're great. So we love you. All right, everybody, you be safe out there. Have a great weekend. Stay warm. I know some of you are still dealing with winter weather, but we'll look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye, everybody.